let's see if we can put together all the rosters of the Marvel vs. Capcom games in 6-inch scale action figures.
Ready?
Hello, this is Soundout here, and on today's video, we're talking about the Marvel vs. Capcom games and if we can fill them out in 6-inch action figure form. So the way this is going to work is kind of similar to how I did my X-Men teams video, where I tried to fill out those X-Men teams as close as I could with some guidelines. This is going to be something similar. And we're specifically going to do it with 6-inch scale action figures because that's what Marvel Legends scale approximately is. And we want to fit Marvel Legends because that's going to give us the widest reach to try to complete sets. That also does mean on the Capcom side, things are very limited, and most of what I'll say is Jada toys. But that means we still have a lot to work with here. And the way this is going to work is we're going to go game by game, going through the rosters of each game. There are some guidelines and rules we're going to apply here. First of all, things have to be 6-inch scale. It's just the scale we're working with. So Storm collectible stuff, all out the window because those scale more 8-inch scale. Secondly, we're going to be trying to match costumes and looks, but not going for exact matches. Sadly, there's not an entire Marvel Legends line that's based on the Bendis art, even though I wish there was. So we're going to be going with what was the design they were pulling an inspiration from the comics, and then finding a figure there. And then number 3, we're looking at specifically the modern age, so the last 10 years of action figures, and we are specifically talking about the most recent version. That way, it's kind of like a, hey, if you're trying to find a figure of this character, here's the most recent one to come out. Even if maybe some older figures might match, we're looking at most recent, and we're looking within the last 10 years. So keep that in mind as we talk about this, because I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments, and probably some controversy, but controversy's fun. We can discuss things in the comments down below as to whether or not certain figures match or which ones work best. We can hash that all out in the comments section. And while you're down there, hit the like button, subscribe to the notification bell if you haven't already. That greatly helps videos like this perform well, and it helps the channel grow to do more videos in a similar style. So like I said, we're going to go through game by game. And I thought because of the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection being released today in its physical edition, let's go over the games in that edition. We're not going to go to Marvel 3, because that's kind of its own whole big thing. We're going to stop at Marvel 2. But before we even go into that, let's start with Capcom's first Marvel game. While not a fighting game, it was a beat-em-up, The Punisher. Starting with playable characters, of course, the Punisher himself. This version of Frank is the most closest match to the version that appears in the game, and it is several years old. It came out in the first Marvel Legends retro card wave, so it's been a long time, and hopefully we see a new updated Punisher with him appearing in the MCU again very soon. We did just recently get a new Nick Fury in the S.H.I.E.L.D. 3-pack, but of course it doesn't match the actual appearance in the game. So the other playable character we cannot cross off the list quite yet. In terms of supporting cast, Microchip, we have no Marvel Legend for. Dum Dum Dugan also appears in the S.H.I.E.L.D. pack, but not appears as how he shows up in the game. And Kathleen Neville has no Marvel Legends figure. In terms of villains, Bruno Costa, no Marvel Legend. Scully, no Marvel Legend. Jigsaw did get a Marvel Legend as a single pack at Walgreens. No Marvel Legend of the Guardroid, but we do have Pretty Boy, who came in an X-Men 5-pack, and Bonebreaker, who is an X-Men Wave Build-A-Figure. Bushwhacker just came out in a 2-pack with Punisher, so he's got a modern figure. And of course we have several Kingpins, with this retro card one being the most recent, though it's not an exact match color-wise to the one from the game. So with the Punisher game, I only listed the characters that existed in the comics. There are dozens of other character designs in the game that are the generic grunt enemies, and I left those off because the chances of them getting Marvel Legends figures is pretty low. Will they complete this roster? Maybe. It's just a matter of getting more Punisher characters, because we already got the 2 X-Men characters that were inexplicably in this game. And there is specific looks of other characters like Nick Fury that we would still need to really round out the experience. But we're off to a decent start with a lesser-known game. But let's transition into a more well-known game, X-Men Children of the Atom. So with using mostly comic designs, any Wolverine in this costume will pretty much work as a close approximation to the version from Children of the Atom. This one being the X-Men 97 one is the most recent of this 90s style Wolverine costume. Psylocke in her blue ninja costume has not been released since the Apocalypse wave of Marvel Legends. She desperately needs an update, but we do at least have this look. For Cyclops, any of the 90s style Cyclops figures will work, the X-Men 97 being the most recent version. For Storm, the most recent one with this hairstyle and this costume is the retro card one, as the X-Men 97 has a different hairstyle than the more comic-styled one here. So this is going to be the most recent that will match the game. There's not a ton of Iceman figures out there, but this retro-carded Iceman is probably the closest match to the one that we see in the game. Colossus from the Colossus vs. Juggernaut 2-pack from the 80th anniversary line is going to be the closest match classic Colossus we can use here. For Spiral, the retro card version from the recent wave is definitely the best version to get, and probably the only version we're going to see of this character. For Silver Samurai, the most recent one was the retro card version, and honestly, I think it'll work pretty good for what we need here. For Omega Red, the most recent release was the Wolverine 5-pack version, but you could also use the single card version from a previous Build-A-Figure wave if you so wish. Now we run into a complication with the Sentinel, because we've gotten several Sentinels from Hasbro, but none in the design that appears in the Capcom games. So until we do that, I don't count any Sentinel as being here for the game. For Juggernaut, the 80th anniversary 2-pack version that came with Colossus is definitely a perfect fit for what we need here. Any Juggernaut will do, though. He's kind of got the same design in multiple eras. There's been several Magnetos over the years. The X-Men 97 is the most recent of this version of the costume, and that will be the one I'll be using here. And then secret character Akuma, coming over from Street Fighter 2, will be getting a Jada Toys figure in the near future, and I'm looking forward to that release. So in total, we have 11 of the 13 characters, and then once Akuma comes out, we will have 12 of the 13. Because the thing is, with these figures and with this roster, a lot of it was based directly on the comics, specifically the Fatal Attraction storyline. So there was a lot of comic books to pull from, especially because 90s X-Men is one of the most prolific and popular eras of the characters, at least when it comes to merchandise. So we've had this well covered. We're just missing that Sentinel. If we had that Sentinel, we can consider this roster complete. Next, we look at Marvel superheroes. Returning from a prior game, Wolverine, Psylocke, Juggernaut, and Magneto. For new characters, we have Captain America. Any classic Cap will do, but the most closest version that you probably could use is the Secret Wars Captain America, which is very, very recent, except that one has a broken shield, so you're going to need a shield from somewhere else. For me, in the stand-in, I'm just going to use the 80th anniversary Cap, that's the most recent one I've gotten. But any classic Cap will pretty much fill this slot. Hulk is in a similar boat. Any classic Hulk with the purple pants will work, but the haircut, we don't have that specific like 90s hair that Hulk has in the games. They did in the comics at the time. So you're just gonna have to forget about the hair and just go, yeah, I got a Hulk and the Hulk will do. So with Spider-Man, any classic Spidey will do. One from the 90s is preferable, and I think the Renew Your Vows, which has a lot of 90s styling, is probably my favorite overall, but like I said, any classic Spidey will do. Iron Man is the easiest one to do because this is a Marvel vs. Capcom Iron Man. Yes, it is technically the animated Iron Man, but he comes with a proton cannon, he comes with that helmet, and he comes with effect parts that are Marvel vs. Capcom specific. I've talked about this figure in the past. It's kind of what started this whole like, oh, we are getting Marvel vs. Capcom stuff again. So Iron Man is this one. This is the one you want. For Blackheart, he recently had a Build-A-Figure, and that is the version we're going to use because the only one before this was a Toy Biz one from a long, long time ago. No luck on Shuma Gorath, though. We hope that this Doctor Strange villain will materialize one day. Doctor Doom's another character who doesn't change his look that often. The most recent one was the Cabal 3-pack Doctor Doom, though he is a bit darker colored than he is in the games. There are some other lighter colored Dooms that might fit better, but we're just going to use this one for the sake of simplicity. And then for Thanos, the closest match is the Deluxe Thanos, though the helmet doesn't have those pointy things he has in the game. Is that something that we could get as another release of this figure where he's got the pointy helmet? Time will tell, but Thanos is covered as well. The world is lacking in a lot of things, but 6-inch scale Darkstalkers is one of them, so we have no figures of Anita in this scale, or I don't even know if there's figures of Anita, period. She is a secret character in the game. She's not even supposed to be playable, but she does exist in the game, and you can play as her in the collection pretty easily, so we're including her, but we don't have any toys to represent her. So my favorite game in the series is doing pretty good. The Marvel Superheroes roster is just missing Shuma Gorath. And we're missing Anita, but like I said, super secret character, test character. She's kind of a legendary figure. But in terms of the base roster, we are just missing Shuma Gorath, and that is pretty good. I think that Shumagorath almost feels possible at this point. You know, I feel like characters like Blackheart get made because of the notoriety in these games, more so than their comic counterparts, but pretty good range overall. I also do find it interesting this game had 4 returning X-Men characters from Children of the Atom. It was, you know, times were the way they are, but it kind of makes this video and why I do all of the classic games, because they just kind of progress one into another. And speaking of, after we had 2 solo Marvel games, it was time to do a proper crossover with X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Returning from previous games, Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, Juggernaut, Magneto, and Akuma. New characters include Gambit, who can be used with any 90s version. We're going to use the X-Men 97 version. It's the most recent release. And actually, I think his hair matches a lot of the art in the MVC series. And then for the better half of the power couple, Rogue, we're going to use any 90s Rogue, but specifically we're going to use the X-Men 97 one as it's the most recent. For Sabretooth, we've got the 2-pack version from the Wolverine 50th anniversary line. This is a really nice 90s Sabretooth, and it's a good fit for what we got here. Now, there are no figures of Birdie, who he does summon as part of his attack moves, but it may be someday. I don't know, we're getting Fabian Cortez, anything's possible. On the Street Fighter side of things, we have Ryu from the Jada Toys line. This is a Street Fighter II Ryu. Ryu in X-Men vs. Street Fighter was using the Alpha designs. That was the most recent at the time. But that's just a head swap away, and Jada will probably do the Alpha version in the future, but for now we can just sub in Ryu and just not worry about the bandana color. Pretty much the same deal goes for Ken, also the Jada Toys figure. Also the wrong head. The longer hair from Alpha would be a better match, and in fact they did look a little bit slimmer in Alpha than they did in Street Fighter 2 because it was earlier in the timeline, but for the most part this Ken we're going to use as a substitute, just not worrying about the hair. Just like with Hulk, it's like, you know, hair differences here and there, but for the most part the look is there. For Chun-Li, once again, the Jada Toys version is going to be just right what we need, especially because she does have a matching look here, which is great to see. For Zangief, we don't have a current 6-inch scale Zangief, but the Jada Toys version is coming in the future, and that should work quite nicely. For Dhalsim, Jada Toys figure, yet again, perfect match for what we need here. For Charlie, there's no current 6-inch scale Charlie figure in the modern day. For Cammy, there is a Jada Toys figure, but she's based on the Street Fighter 2 appearance, and the game version was the Street Fighter Alpha appearance, which are completely different costumes, so it's not just a hair difference. So if you want a Cammy that matches that, we're going to be waiting for an Alpha version. And then lastly, for M. Bison, he rarely changes looks, so the Jada figure is going to work perfectly in this instance. So for X-Men vs. Street Fighter, the X-Men side is complete. We have everybody on the X-Men half of the roster because it's 90s X-Men, like I said, heavily merchandised. In terms of the Street Fighter side, we're waiting on Akuma and Zangief, and then we're going to need different versions of Cammy. We also need Charlie and the proper Ken and Ryu. Those are all things that could happen the longer that the Jada Toys Street Fighter line continues, which I hope it does because they're beautiful. I love this line. I've not talked about it enough on this channel. I need to fix that in the future. These figures match together. The Marvel Legends scale a little bit taller than the Jada Street Fighters, but these are the closest matching you get. It's better than using like Storm Collectibles where they're like 8 inches tall and like way too big. This is at least a lot closer. And this is the template we're going to use going forward. Street Fighter figures are coming from Jada, and I'm going to be using them in the future game rosters. In fact, it's time to go to another Street Fighter crossover with Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. Returning from previous games, Captain America, Cyclops, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Hulk, Blackheart, Shumagorath, Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Dhalsim, Zangief, M. Bison, and Akuma. Kicking off new characters is Secret Character US Agent. He's just a recolor Captain America in the game, but this is the Marvel Legends Controller Wave release of the character, which will do the job. Secret Character Armored Spider-Man will, of course, be represented by this Retro Card Wave Armored Spider-Man. This is the design it's inspired by, even if in the game it's just a straight recolor of Spider-Man. Secret Character Mephisto, which is just a red black heart. Maybe we'll see it someday, maybe we won't. Moving to the Street Fighter side, we have Dan, who was certainly to get a Jada figure eventually. Same with Sakura. They haven't gotten him yet, but I hope they get him in the future. Secret Character Cyber Akuma, not as likely. I'm not exactly sure if Capcom wants a figure of this character out there, but it would be super cool to see. Exclusive to the Japanese version, Norimaru is a Japanese comedian. I think we'll never see an action figure of him, and if we do, it will be something weird and wacky. Secret character Dark Sakura, secret character Mecha Zangief, and secret character Shadow. Maybe, is very stretching to even think that we might get those. Okay, so a lot more gaps in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, even though there's a ton of figures on screen. And while we do have US Agent and Armored Spider-Man, those are two characters that exist in the comics that way. Whereas Blackheart repainted into Mephisto, that's not a thing in the comics, and the only way we're going to see that is if we get a specific repaint. So, will this roster ever be complete? Probably not. But let's move on to another game that is possible of getting complete if some certain things would line up. Marvel vs. Capcom. Returning from prior games, Captain America, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Gambit, Hulk, Ryu, who now matches his sprite because they retooled it into a Street Fighter II version, Chun-Li, and Zangief. So for new characters, War Machine is a direct recolor of Iron Man in the game, and this direct recolor of Iron Man that was released as a single figure confused many who weren't familiar with the game, but we do have specifically Marvel vs. Capcom War Machine. Now for Venom, we have several. The most recent was the 85th anniversary single card retro figure. There is a lot of Venoms. None of them are blue. It would be nice to get a blue Venom, but for right now, we're just going to go with a black Venom because that's his typical look, and the blue kind of feels like a reflection of that in some ways. But the straight blue, no exact figure, but we do have a lot of Venoms. The secret character, Orange Hulk, probably not getting a figure, but this is one of the secret recolors, which is a separate character slot. Hyper Armor War Machine, he is a gold version of War Machine. Probably also not getting a figure. Same with High Speed Venom. All three of these characters are secret recolor characters. I don't know if we'll ever see figures of them. On the Capcom side, Morrigan from Darkstalkers doesn't have a 6-inch scale figure. There is the Storm Collectibles one, but that skews closer to 8-inch. Way too big for what we're looking for here. Maybe in the future. Jin also lacks any 6-inch figures, or hardly any figures in general. Captain Commando had a recent figure by 52 Toys, but that was 3 3/4 inch as opposed to 6-inch. Now for Mega Man, we have the COTA model kit, which I feel fits proportionately best with the Marvel vs. Capcom look, but the Jada Toys one I think scale-wise fits better. Jada Toys has been doing a lot of Mega Man figures, and they're more classic game inspired, whereas the Marvel vs. Capcom is sort of later inspired, but we may see a version like this in the Jada line. So it's kind of a pick your duo here. Do you want size or do you want styling? There's options. Despite Strider Hiryu being a really cool character, no 6-inch figures. For roll, you could probably use the COTA kit. Once again, scaling may be an issue, and Jada Toys hopefully will do roll in the future. Secret character Shadow Lady, maybe it's kind of another weird repaint. And the Lilith color version of Morrigan. Well, we have to have a Morrigan to repaint into this one. Alright, so ignoring the alternate color characters, the Marvel side's done. Also, if Venom was blue, that'd be fantastic. But the Marvel side, we at least have all the characters. Capcom side, super gappy. Morrigan, Jin, Captain Commando, and Roll feel like characters that could happen at some point from some company, but at the moment, we just don't have anything perfect. Roll, like I said, you could get the COTA kit, but look how big Mega Man is next to Ryu. That just seems wrong to me. I much prefer the size of the Jada Toys, even if maybe he was a little bit taller, even. But, there's some options with the Mega Man characters. But Morrigan, Jin, Captain Commando, Strider Hiryu, sorry, I forgot to mention him earlier, those four just feel like they should happen. They're icons. Like, some company just make 6-inch figures of them. I would prefer Jada, because they're already on a roll with Capcom as is, but they're busy. They got Street Fighter and they got Mega Man, but maybe in the future those characters can be represented. Otherwise, it is a little bit lopsided, and this lopsidedness will continue into this game's sequel, the Everyone is Here of the classic Marvel vs. Capcom games, Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride.
Returning from prior games, Captain America, Cyclops, Wolverine Adamantium Claws, Spider-Man, Hulk, Iron Man, War Machine, Iceman, Gambit, Rogue, though she did have a different default color scheme, Colossus, Psylocke, Storm, Silver Samurai, Sabretooth, Juggernaut, Shuma Gorath, Spiral, Blackheart, Venom, Sentinel, Doctor Doom, Omega Red, Thanos, Magneto, Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Dulcim, Zangief, Charlie, Dan, Sakura, Cammy, M. Bison, Akuma, Jin, Strider Hiryu, Morrigan, Mega Man, Roll, and Captain Commando. New characters starting with Cable. This version was just released in the Marvel Legends Zabu Wave. He is kind of hard to get at the moment, and I hope Hasbro will reissue him for those that missed out. But this is definitely the same costume that he has in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Now for Marrow, we don't have any Marvel Legends of her, but there is a rumor she might be on the horizon, which would be pretty exciting. Marrow never really worked out as a character in the comics to be super popular, but she does have notoriety for being in this game. Wolverine Bone Claws. There was a gameplay difference between Adamantium and Bone Claws Wolverine, so there is 2 Wolverines on the roster. The Bone Claws we did get in the Marvel Legends Love Triangle 3-pack, so it has been out, but it's been a long time since. Now on the Capcom side, less likely to exist, but we have original character Ruby Heart, as well as Amingo and Son Son. These 3 characters were made for Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and I hope that maybe someday they could get figures, but at the moment it's a little unlikely. Guile has a Jada Toys figure that's coming out very, very soon. Jill from Resident Evil has other figures, but not one in a 6-inch scale. Hayato feels unlikely to get a figure. Tronbon also seems unlikely to get a figure, but if she does, a Servbot would be a great pack-in. And as the world continues to lack Darkstalkers figures, BB Hood, Felicia, and Anakaris. There was a lot of gaps on the Capcom side. Okay, so that's a lot of characters. Yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom 2's roster is massive because they reused assets from all the previous games, and that's why we had so many returning characters. In general, there's a lot of characters still missing. That was the whole point of this entire video, is to kind of go over who we have, who we don't, how to piece this all together. Part of me is like, oh, I'm kind of glad not everybody's here because I don't know if we'd have the room to fit everyone. But the important part is that this comes to the end of us looking at the games, because we were, of course, covering from X-Men Children of the Atom through Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and we threw a little Punisher in for some bonuses. But that pretty much covers the topic of this video. So in conclusion, Marvel vs. Capcom is such a special thing, and the fact that we have so many figures that we can piece together into these rosters is super cool. Part of that helps the fact that Marvel vs. Capcom used a lot of Marvel Comics designs instead of redesigning the characters, so we have a bit of a more well-rounded experience. The Capcom side is lacking. Jada Toys is doing amazing work with Street Fighter and Mega Man, but the other Capcom properties, pretty much forgotten in the current day. That makes me sad, because I really want some nice Darkstalkers figures. The other thing to keep in mind is some of the little variation differences. Like, we still need that Hulk head that has the hair for the 90s look, not just because of this game, but because of 90s Hulk in general. It's one of the defining eras. And there's some other little things here and there. Characters like Marrow, I think you would release because notoriety in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, less so than comics, but that adds to the comic shelf as well. So there's a lot to the topic. We also are stopping here, as you may notice. We're not going into Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, we're not going into Infinite. Maybe we'll look at those in the future if this video is something that sparks the interest in it. So if you want to make sure we do a follow-up to do Marvel 3, to do Infinite, leave a comment down below and tell us that's the case. Also hit the like button, subscribe, and notification bell if you haven't already. If this does well enough, I'm probably going to have to look up and do Marvel 3 and Infinite. And kind of like how we could kind of build towards Marvel 2 here, going through all the games, we can build into Infinite by starting in 3. Though there's a lot of costume variation there, so we will see how that works out. But we'll leave that as a teaser. If this video does well, we will probably definitely do that. And if you want to keep up with future events on the channel, join our Discord server in the link below. Come discuss, come hang out. You get notifications every time a video goes up on this channel in the Discord, which is a good way to keep track of things in case YouTube's notification system isn't telling you when new videos are uploaded. And if you want to help support videos like this to continue happening on the channel, consider joining as a channel member. There are perks like early access to videos, member-exclusive live streams, and special shoutouts. Let's give some special shoutouts right now. Special shout out to all of our channel members, including our captain tiers: Spin-54, Toma K, Masturbed95, Jamie's World, Forever1000, Toast Rave, Brenton Yadden, Mr. Smelly Potato, GV2186, Silver Bricks, Richard, K Breezy, Tranzilla Jack, Super Robozilla Go, Gil Roland's Kingdom, Nomo Toka, Oni Oni-chan, David Johnson, Sketchosaur Res, and Ruben Abrego. Thank you all for your support. If you so wish, you can find me on Blue Sky and Instagram at Soundout12, but I'm more active on our Discord server. You can find my wonderful graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643, and you can find Hero Club at HeroClub.com for gaming news, entertainment news, and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, gonna take you for a ride.